talk about sales now, because you mentioned earlier about the fact that companies have really got to make sure, or you've got to make sure that your product is exceptionally good. So if you've got an exceptionally good salesperson watching this right now, and they think their product is average at best, what advice would you give to them? Should they just leave and go and find a company where the product is good, or should they scream at management that they need to incrementally improve their product, do you think?
Well, they should probably have their managers look at the first part of this interview.
Yeah.
The second part is, if you're in sales, as I was for many years, you don't really have a choice over the product. You have to assume that your company has produced a good product or service, and they have priced it well in a competitive market. So your job is to sell more of it. And this brings us to the great breakthrough of the 21st century, is that all sales in the 21st century are relationship sales. They're relationship sales, which means that people do not buy the product or service, they buy how they feel about the person selling it. And then the product or service becomes important. So the first job of the sales professional is to take the time to develop a relationship of trust and credibility with the prospect, sincerely. We say step one is to separate prospects from suspects. A prospect is someone who needs it, who wants it, who can afford it, and who can use it. And they have all of those needs now. Yeah. A suspect is someone who may need it or want it sometime in the future. Don't spend all of your time, or any of your time, speaking to people who don't have a need for what you're selling in the short-term future. So you ask them some questions. What are you doing now, and how is that working, and what are your plans for the future? If they say, well, we're perfectly satisfied and we don't have any money and business is terrible and we're not making any changes, and you say, great, you have a wonderful day, and here's my business card, and call me if ever things change. And you keep looking for people who have a need. We say that if you're selling fire extinguishers and a person's hair is on fire, that's a good prospect. They need your product, and they need it now, and they need it immediately. And so there's a whole series of things we teach on how to identify the best prospects, how to find them, how to approach them, and so on. The second thing is to build credibility with them. In sales and in life, credibility is everything. Your trustworthiness, your believability, how much I can trust you, how much confidence I feel in dealing with you, is the most important single factor, not only as a salesperson, but as a human being. And so you will find that your very best relationships in life are people with whom you have this perfect trust relationship. Your spouse, your best friends, your best customers. You have relationships. I work with people on multi-million-dollar deals whom I've never met on the telephone or by email because we have a trust relationship. And we can enter into agreements, and we can make commitments, and we can actually spend money and put in hours because we trust each other. There's no problem. And so trust between a customer and a salesperson is really important. And you build trust by asking questions. Not by talking about your company or your service, by asking really good questions and listening closely to the answers and working to understand your customer. One of the things I say is position yourself as a doctor of selling. Many salespeople kill the sale by walking in and saying, hello, I'm Brian Tracy, let me tell you about my product or service. That's like going into a party and saying, oh, you're a pretty girl, and jumping all over them. Wait. It's too soon. It's too soon to pounce. Most salespeople go in and pounce because they're nervous. Instead, what you do is you go slow. And what you say is I'd like to ask you a couple of questions and see if we can't help you achieve your goals in a cost-effective way. Would that be all right? People will relax if you offer to ask them questions and make no effort to sell at all. Because you don't even know if this is a prospect or a suspect yet. So if you start to sell before you are clear and before the customer is clear that a need exists, you'll kill the sale. So just go slow and ask questions about them. One of the things we teach our sales professionals is to prepare thoroughly for every meeting. Go on to Google, do whatever you need to do to find out everything you can about the prospect before you meet them for the first time. Remember, the first impression is lasting. And a customer today can tell if you're prepared or not within 30 seconds. If you walk in and you say, thank you very much for your time. I had no idea your company had been here for 33 years. You have 270 people and 12 branches, and your best-selling product is this or that, and it just won the quality award last year. I say, how do you know all this stuff? Well, I went to your website and I looked it up. And what do people put on their website? They put the things that they're most proud of. We call this their bragging page. They put things on their bragging page. So you go to their website and you'll learn the things that they are most proud of as a company. And if you feed it back to them and say, I looked at your website and wow, that's pretty good material. They say, gee, we can't even get our own people to look at our website, much less outside people. And you know what? Your credibility goes straight up, and their fears and skepticism and negativity goes straight down. And there's an inverse relationship between the two. As your credibility goes up, their fear goes down. Now they start off with a high level of fear and skepticism, but as you begin to build credibility by doing your homework and then by asking good questions to fill in the answers and listening closely to the answers, they start to go, oh, I'm dealing with a professional. Thank heavens. So here's what I teach my professionals. I say, imagine that you are a doctor of selling. I have my diploma grantor here in my form of a magic wand, and I'm going to make all of you into doctors from now on. The only difference is that you make house calls. And other doctors in Harley Street, you have to go and see them, or wherever they are. So what does a doctor do anywhere in the world? A doctor follows 3 steps in a doctor relationship, doctor-patient relationship. The first step is the examination, where the doctor asks a lot of questions, takes tests, pulse, heart rate, blood pressure, and so on. And then they do tests, and then they sit down and they say, here are the results of our tests. This is the questioning process in selling as well. Here's the diagnosis. Here's what we think you need. Here's the situation that we think you have. And the customer says, yes, that sounds like what I have. That's what I need. The waiter says, this is what I would recommend for you based on what you want to eat. And you say, yeah, that sounds good. Then the prescription is, now here is what I suggest. And this is where you offer your product or service or close the sale. So it's always examination, diagnosis agreed upon, and prescription. What most salespeople do is they commit what we call sales malpractice, is they walk in and they go straight to prescription. And they start talking about what the product or service will do and how long their company's been in business and how long the customer doesn't care about that. The customer only cares is, how will your product or service transform my life or work in some way? How will it change me? How will it help me or benefit me? And I don't even want to know that until I get to know you, and so I trust you, and you get to know me so that your recommendation has some value. Imagine if you went into a restaurant with many dishes and you say, what would you recommend? And they say, this and this. Well, don't you want to know what I like or what I want? Or, no, I don't know, everybody likes this. Well, that's how most salespeople sell. They just walk in, they assume that whatever somebody else bought, this person wants as well. So they start talking about the product. And that's the same as pouncing on a girl at a social gathering when you meet her for the first time. So don't do the pounce, just stop. And be prepared to go back a second time. Take notes carefully in a sales presentation and say, may I think about what you have said for a couple of days and come back to you with some ideas on how we might be able to help you. What is the customer going to say? The customer is going to say, absolutely. What if a doctor does a complete examination, says, look, I'd like to get all of these results together and then see you again in about a week. Would that be all right? Of course. You start to shift your whole schedule. You are looking forward eagerly to hearing what the doctor has found out and what his recommendations or her recommendations would be. And this is the beginning of the relationship-based selling process. And people who sell like this earn 10 times as much as people who sell the other way.